I'd like for everybody to introduce yourselves, what you do for the company that you're working with, and one way that you are choosing to be a bit more mindful in your consumption or sustainable in your own personal life. And if there's something that you're doing with technology in your personal life to be a better human for the planet, we're here for that too. So pass it to you, Chantelle.
Instead of talking into it. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm Chantelle Murnaghan. So I'm Vice President of Research and Product Innovation at Lululemon. I focus more on the apparel side or our soft goods side across all categories except for footwear. We have a separate footwear incubation team. So that's kind of the lay of the land of my portfolio. How I'm more conscious, I'm very much focused on longevity. So I think it's a key thing, especially at Lululemon, key platform for us is we have tons on the sustainable materials side, huge opportunities there that I'll share a little bit about more on that later. But I think the essence of the brand as a whole is a quality promise that allows you to wear things for a very, very long time. And I think that's the most impact that you can actually have in that space versus other kind of opportunities to do things differently.
Hi, I'm Liz from New York. I'm an unusual corporate exec. At my heart, I am a founder. I had 2 exits. And I wanted to come to the corporate world to learn patience and be more strategic. That has been very incredible. The past 4 years, I'm evolved as a person because of that. To answer on sustainability, there was a talk yesterday that I really treasured about one of the themes of the presentation was about bigger versus, better. More or better, and it's been the algorithm of my life for the past few years. We want better, not more, and I've been talking a lot about this with my daughters, and to an example of that, we had a very large home in Westchester County, which I purchased from an exit. I like to call it my fuck you home, like. And then I had it, I enjoyed it, it was great, I threw parties at it. But then I realized I don't need this. And we realized it as a family, and we downsized. And we started downsizing our life in a bunch of different ways that brought us so much more purpose and joy. And then I brought them to my closet. I bring that to my consumption. It's just we're going through that phase right now as a family that I think is something really, really cool, that we need to bring that in the aspects of our life. So brands have I feel, this challenge that they need to show up in your life as the better, not the more. And it's up to us to figure out how to do that.
Hi, I'm Allie. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Kitnace and also a outdoor adventure apparel and headwear brand called Tilly, if anyone's familiar with the Tilly hat. I have come from a very granola upbringing, I would say. My parents, small town. My dad's a hunter and fisher. My mom was making kombucha before I think it was cool. And then in recent years, my partner is also a fisherman and comes from a fishing background. And so, sustainability and I guess considered consumption has always been part of my life. I really value that and have tried to bring that to all the brands that I work for. And most recently, this is a very relevant topic for the tech community, but one of the brands that I'm working for, Kitnace, we've really tried to embody a capsule wardrobe concept, and that's sort of a concept of buying less but more purposeful items. I've cleaned out my closet and really tried to focus in on minimal purchasing, items that I can wear over and over again, traveling with a carry-on suitcase, which if anyone is a check-on suitcase person, it's a big change, but definitely consuming less, and I think being a little bit more considered with what I'm buying from a food perspective as well as a clothing and household perspective.
Amazing. I'm seeing a lot of nods in the audience over this feeling of choosing with your dollars, right? And quality over quantity. Tell me a little bit about, in a soundbite, what impact looks like at all of your different companies. Over to you. What does impact mean? It's a big word.
Well, one of the key things, it's a huge cross-functional endeavor at Lululemon because there's a huge kind of value placed on the kind of interconnectivity between individual, community, and planetary well-being as a whole. So we have Esther Speck, who's our SVP of Sustainable Business Impact, and she is almost the coordinator across the enterprise to drive different initiatives that we term under the umbrellas of Be Human, Be Well, Be Planet. So it crosses over so many things from our pay equity, our gender pay equity on the Be Human side, to scaling well-being and access to well-being, to responsible practices at our factories and making sure the well-being is at the front and center of how and who we work with. And then the last one, which is our more typical, is our Be Planet Materials program and the impact agenda on how we totally transition how we create apparel using recycled content, but more importantly for the long term is really pushing huge endeavor, which is really led by Yogi Dandipur, our Vice President of Raw Material Innovation, and we partner very, very closely, but he's been pushing the textile to textile, so enzymatically recycling products. So what that looks like is you may have bought a pair of Align tights 10 years ago. Our goal is to take them back, enzymatically recycle them, and break them down over and over and over again into their kind of constituent building blocks, and then rebuild a fabric or a material so that we can create new product from that. So this was really born out of academic partnerships. We just partnered cross-functionally, Yogi, myself, some of our mainline design and development partners, to bring forward the world's first nylon 6.6, or what we call performance nylon, and that was delivered in an anorak in January, and we're really kind of scaling that program across our materials. So all of those areas are of significant impact and are not mutually exclusive as we think about the organization as a whole. And it's all about how do we bring well-being through different means to our guests and to the planet, and huge initiatives across various aspects of the entire enterprise. And I have the great fortune of getting to really collaborate with them on various projects, whether that be kind of supporting our Center for Social Impact. We did a huge project where we were really attempting to close the sex and gender data gap in sports science and sport medicine. And a portion of that was donating to the Girls Opportunity Alliance, which is a program based out of the Obama Foundation. Again, really championing the well-being of young girls and helping them reach their potential, all the way to the anorak delivery, which is a sustainable material platform. So I have such great fortune of being at the center of all of these amazing initiatives, and how do we really amplify them and bring them to life so we can bring them to our guests, our community, and the world in a completely different way.
Do you want to jump on that one, just to break the pattern?
Sure, I love it. And fun fact, Kit Nace was actually started by the former founder of Lululemon as well. We are a small offshoot. But recently, last year, it was purchased by another Canadian retailer, Joe Mimram. He started Club Monaco and also started Joe Fresh. So I work for Joe Fresh. But I think it's interesting. So I work across two very different brands, both in the portfolio company. And one of them, Tilly, which is very much a heritage headwear first brand. We actually manufacture about 50% of our products in Canada, in Ontario still. And it's a very important part of our business, just from the mindset of, there's incredible manufacturing in Asia now. We all know that. It's some of the best manufacturing in the world. But it's the thought of how can we stay true to our roots in terms of quality, heritage, amazing partners on the manufacturing side in Ontario that have been with us for 30 years. And we also offer a lifetime guarantee on those products because they're built really, really well. And with smaller brands, there's ways that you can impact in a much smaller scale, but across both businesses, we use 70% of our materials, recycled content, and sustainable materials. And then we build things to last, because the worst thing for sustainability is rapid consumption and purchasing lots of things. So with Tilly, it's really about how can you make things that will be a vintage piece for future generations? How can you make things where people only need to buy one item? And the less waste that we can produce, the better it is. And then, from the sustainability side, that's one piece, but then also the community impact that you can offer. And one thing that when we were going through the rebrand with Kitnace last year, our target audience is this modern professional, lots of people working in tech and finance, and we've seen a real rise in the anti-burnout culture with our customer. I think post-pandemic, people didn't really want to do the rise and grind as much. They wanted to work smarter, not harder. And so we've really tried to champion mental well-being. And Armando did a great job of sort of the FICA culture of, take care of your mental well-being. And so with all of our shops, we empower them to choose a organization within their community that matters to their teams, that champions mental well-being, whether that be a run club or an organization that's actually supporting mental health. And we think it's really important to, on a hyper-local scale for a smaller company like us at Kitnace, we're only in Canada with our stores, really try and impact the communities that we're a part of.
Okay, so Estée Lauder does a lot in that space, but I don't want to speak for Estée Lauder. It's not my area. I would like to speak to you as an entrepreneur. Is that okay? How many of you know what DPP is? DPP, raise your hand. Oh my God. Okay, you're gonna find out right now. It's really major because it's the separation between the things that we could do and the things that we should do. When you think about large corporations, they're just scratching the surface when you talk about sustainability of everything that they should and must be doing right now. So in Europe, the European Union, they lead in this conversation. They passed legislation that went into effect this past summer. And part of this legislation is the element of DPP, Digital Product Passport. And the requirement that every product sold in Europe needs to have a vessel of communicating to the consumer how it was manufactured and how it can be disposed. So what do you do with this when I don't want it anymore, or when it's too old, or when it's too worn? So that is something revolutionary. It's been fought for a long time. And it's starting like there's a roadmap of how it starts with the electronics, but within 4 or 5 years, it's not that long, it would affect everyone that's on the stage. It's a requirement. Like if we want to sell to an European consumer, we need to have DPP. There are 2 ways for you to do DPP. The easiest one is just slap a QR code on the item. It's much more common in Europe and Asia than it is in the US. We don't have the behavior of scanning that they have there, which I wish we did, because the QR code is a vessel for amazing stories, right, between the products that we love and the things we want to learn. And then each item, starting this fall, you're going to see in Europe, a lot of products already have that in Europe. You scan it and it tells you the whole supply chain, and it tells you recycling information. Then the other way to do this, which is the way that I'm really excited about, and I'm going to nerd out with you guys, is, do you guys remember this word? Blockchain. I love NFTs, I love blockchain, but not that old version of it. This version that I've been waiting for a long time. I might be the only person you meet in a while who has a master's in blockchain. And I did this master's in blockchain. I just graduated. That's why I'm still bragging about it. Just happened this summer. And I fought for this for 2 years because I wanted to get to the source of this, which I went in Cyprus, University of Nicosia, and find out who are the thinkers of this, people who wrote books about this way back then, what are their vision? And their vision wasn't the way crypto was realized, and it wasn't the way NFTs were realizing. It's beyond that. It's blockchain is the check and balance system on AI. Is this bridge to knowing when things are real? Is this bridge to connecting to people's behavior instead of their demographics and creating new experiences and new conversations? So if you're in the luxury space, luxury beauty or luxury fashion, if you tackle this through blockchain and you have blockchain-based NFC chips, for instance, you're able to verify that a product is authentic, which is a problem that a lot of us face in the industry, on top of being compliant with DPP. So it's a different kind of answer, but I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Liz. When I think about my cosmetics bag, I don't think about blockchain. So I'm going to reframe this next question. When you think about rapid technology and the intersect with impact, how are you making sure that you are innovating in sustainability practices, if it's supply chain or manufacturing or processing, but making sure that you're still doing it in an ethical, sustainable way? Do you want me to reframe the question?
Yeah, sure. I have a slight answer, but go ahead.
Well, can I try to tackle it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to bring back to our favorite topic of the week, AI. So it seems like it's too far from what you're asking, but I see it as the same thing. I think every time you see a new technology, an innovation, something new that's moving, creating that FOMO, we live the NFT, we live the metaverse, now we're on the AI and all those hype cycles. You need to tackle that with this framework of sustainability, of your values. It's the same freaking recipe, but people tend not to stick to it. When you look at being a sustainable company and then you're looking at your AI decisions, you need to be thinking about energy consumption, the companies that you're signing agreements with, what are their views on it, what's their roadmap to address it. We can't ignore it anymore. Like, enough of the hypocrisy of us putting press releases on. I'm so not speaking for Estée Lauder. Of the things we put on press releases and then the contracts and the millions, sometimes even billions, that we sign and give to those companies that go against the values that we believe in. So on AI, something that my team has done, we've been very conservative. I have never been this conservative in my entire life. I've always been, as an innovator, shoot first, ask later, lean startup machine, you know, like fast, fast, fast. AI is the first element of innovation in my life that made me slow the fuck down. Like this year, once you make the decisions, you can't take it back, and you have to think of all of those elements together and how it impacts your company and the consumers.
I think on our side, as we're going into this enzymatic recycling, for example, the offshoot requirements to actually enable that are massive. So kind of to your point on slowing down and speeding up, I think everyone's had to really think about what does that look like end to end through the supply chain, from initial ideation to how we even collect old product to actually fuel the feedstock that's required for that. So it's not just a scientific problem of how do we actually do the recycling. It's how do we get the feedstock? How do we scale the plants that actually enable it? How do we connect those plants to our mills and finished good vendors? And there's an entire thing that's really has to be considered for us to actually have the impact. It's not enough to just demonstrate that you can do it. It's more about how do you actually scale that in the size of company that we have. And I think a lot of the things at Lululemon, I think we're really at the forefront of that space. And we actually don't talk about it that much, which is interesting because I do think that there is a bit of a fear of talking about these things publicly. And we have an extremely passionate group of people internally at the company, and I really do believe we're at the forefront of a lot of amazing things in this space, and really thinking about it holistically end to end is the biggest challenge, because you can do that all you want, but if you have to use air freight to then get something to a store, then you're not really thinking about the end-to-end supply chain and all of the knock-on considerations that have to be true to have a holistic impact on the other side.
Yeah, I agree with what you said in terms of it's a scary thing to talk about sustainability as a apparel and fashion brand, because we are producing items for consumption. And it's something too at Kit Nace, when we purchased the company last summer, we really thought about, we're a smaller business, we can't make the same level of impact as a Lululemon or an Estée Lauder, but we can do better, and I think fast fashion is always at the forefront of the conversations in sustainability within apparel, and so we really started with, okay, what are we manufacturing and how do we make sure as much of the product as possible is sustainably sourced, made from recycled contents, even as much as how can we source things that are, once again with Tilly, like local to where we are shipping the goods, because air freight and freighters going through water are a massive cause of waste and pollution. So we've been trying to do better at the size that we are, and it really just starts with us with the product. And Kit and Ace will spend as much as 2 years before we develop a fabric to make sure that it's done right, it's not going to break down, it's not coated in anything harmful. And so we're really just starting right now at the source of the product and trying to make a smaller footprint in terms of how far our product gets shipped to our customer.
Can I just share something, going back to what you're saying? I really want everyone to understand this. Brands are caught in a loop. There is a lot of passion for sustainability. And another thing that I love, which is inclusivity, like inclusive tech. When you think about the systems that the company has with its employee, does it accommodate employees with disabilities? The way that we market, does it accommodate consumers with disability? When you think about disabilities, think of audio, visual, right? Consumers with disability is the largest minority in the world. So when you think about the labels with those tiny freaking prints and you can't read it, you're excluding, right? And that's why the QR codes could be really fun too for that. There's a lot of passion around these things, but then when you're a brand and you start moving towards doing something, whether it's sustainability or inclusivity, and then you talk about it, you get attacked more than you get lauded. So the comms team, they always terrified of creating visibility campaigns around these topics. They're amazing of inclusivity and sustainability because of the negative chatter that creates in the world. I want you to know that next time you go out there after a brand and attack them from doing something, because it takes a lot of courage to do anything at all, and whatever you do, you get eaten alive. And the byproduct of that is then leaders start dragging their heels and stop doing whereas the team wants to do more. So that push and pull is really sad to see, but that's the reality for brands today.
I had the honor of joining the UN Conscious Fashion Summit last year, and what you all three have said in different ways is, as a consumer, we want a brand that is doing things differently, and there's this expectation that you are, and when you put yourself out there, nobody's doing it 100%, because 100% is you would be naked and wearing vintage clothing, which to each his own. But we do consume, so how do you kind of like bridge that gap? And the conference name was Progress Over Perfection, like not getting tripped up and doing things 100%, because that's just not, we don't live in that reality. I wanted to ask you guys about partners that you're bringing on your journey for impact, as we, specifically you, Chantelle, I know there's some cool things that Lululemon is up to. So how do you bring in technology partners, AI partners to help you build out impact programs? Can you talk to us about that?
I'll give go into maybe a bit more detail on the examples that I've already shared. Like I said, across those 3 pillars, it's really important for us. And so one of them, we've brought in partners, and again, this is really led by our raw materials team, whether that be Genomatica, Lanzatech, Samsara. Those are all companies that are really specializing and at the forefront of pushing the space in sustainable materials. So for us, we've really engaged with them as critical partners to bring that expertise in. And like I mentioned, Samsara is actually from an academic institution. So really partnering with them to bring that to scale is a huge endeavor, but saw tons of potential in really the technology that they were enabling in that space. And we're so excited about it, and it's just something that has huge passion across the company. And it's really interesting to navigate it, kind of to your point, that we're always like, we don't know how much volume we have. We don't know what we can do, because we're literally building the plants at the same time as we're trying to build product that leverages that technology. So a really interesting space that requires a ton of agility within the company, but also with our partners, and a lot of trust that has to be built to kind of bring that to life across everyone in innovation, in the product team as a whole, as well as the supply chain team as a whole. So that one's a really exciting one. On the other side, I'm just personally so passionate about female sports science, sports medicine, and truly closing that sex and gender data gap. So that one for me has been really a personal passion project. We did Further, which was an ultra marathon that was 6 days long. We had 10 women.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we had 10 women see how far that they could go when they were fully supported. And when we say fully supported, that was through every realm you can possibly imagine. Having a brand that would put them on a stage, maybe that they haven't had an experience of being on before. Doing a full scientific research program, which has really no benefit to the business, to be honest. It's a huge scientific research program that's pushing foundational understanding of female physiology and female side of sport medicine from both a biological standpoint, but also a social construct standpoint as well, which we're so passionate about, but we were able to have that platform to push that. And like I said, that third pillar was really the Center for Social Impact and really how we spread that across the world and really take it beyond these 10 women in and of themselves. And so on that platform, really, we made 36 net new products, 10 patents, huge, amazing accomplishment on the innovation side and what we can actually sell. But the actual impact of that was way beyond, and the innovation in the product actually became way less compared to the rest of what was enabled. So that one for me was how we partner with academic institutions to drive almost a requirement. We have a platform as a brand which has been innovating for women for the last 25 years. And I believe we have a responsibility to push academic partners to push understanding in a completely different way. I have a PhD in kinesiology, and I was laughing because only a couple years ago was the accurate physiology of a female body published. So, I'm carrying around an anatomy textbook all through my undergraduate degree. And the reality was that there was nothing actually that represented even me from a physiological standpoint, which it just seems insane. So all of that to say that there's a lot of different opportunities of how we drive impact in that space, how we drive impact in unlocking potential through the innovations we deliver, but also nutrition support, like psychological support, mental health, sports psychology coaching, training programs, all the way to how we bring kind of material platforms as a whole through our partnerships to life. So I'm just very passionate on the holistic perspective of impact that I believe, have a responsibility to drive as a big brand in a lot of different spaces, and it needs to go way beyond physical product.
I definitely want to talk to you about that ultra over lunch. I'm so curious, and I want to run it.
No, you don't.
I don't know. Try me. I'll be fast since we're out of time. One thing that I want to share with you and ask you at the same time is just step out of the echo chambers and the vortex of usual places when people think about what's next, innovation, technology partners. They keep thinking of the same things, like Silicon Valley, sometimes New York, and that's not my guiding light. My guiding light is going to the voices. They are not the voices that people keep repeating. It's like coming here to hear people like Gary yesterday talk about his book and a different, like a contrarian view. There's a lot of truth when you seek those things. When you go and think about what's happening in Eastern Europe, like if you guys don't know any startups from Eastern Europe and your job is innovation, you're not doing your job. And even like Silicon Valley and Israel is not enough. I'm just back from Singapore. I met the coolest AI idea for creatives there. You know what I mean? So constantly going out there in the world, and if you don't have the budget to travel, network yourself virtually to different areas of the world to find those elements of truth, so you're not a captor of this American-centric view that does not reflect reality, and it does not really allow you to do your job and influence your company to take you to a sustainable future. So I'm just saying, be global, please, I beg you. And there are networks that you can be part of, like being here is a step toward this direction, but continue building upon that.
Yeah, and I think I'll just take it back to Jaclyn's question really quick, but When I look at impact-based partnerships, I think it's really important to look at, is it authentic to your brand? And with Tilly in the last year, we've partnered with Melanoma Canada because a lot of our customers are actually 60 plus, very heritage-based business. And we worked with Melanoma Canada to integrate a full apparel line of UPF 50 products, which is sun safety first. We saw a big rise, obviously, in melanoma in the last couple of years in our customer base, and have been working with them to do research and development on how can we make clothing more sun safe, how can we get awareness out there about when you're golfing, playing tennis, etc., protecting yourself, and been donating a lot of money to their cause-based research on cancer. And for us, we feel like that's a really fun and organic partnership because it is something that impacts a lot of people. So that's the small way that we've been innovating through a partnership in Canada is through cancer research and sun safety.
Amazing. Well, thank you to the three of you. Do we have times for Q&A? Looking at the Frontier team? Shall we? No, we're going to wrap it up. Well, thank you so much, everybody.